This is Girls, Gains, and Growing Pains, a podcast about working smarter and harder to achieve your fitness goals. In every episode, we break down common health and fitness questions in a fun and relatable way.
Whether you're a beginner or far along on your fitness journey, this podcast is for you. I'm Rachel Johns, a bikini bodybuilder, nutrition certified through Precision Nutrition, and a NASM certified personal trainer.
And I'm Julia Ross, just a regular gal trying to get healthier and lose weight.
It is important to note that neither of us are medical professionals, and the views expressed on this podcast are those of the host.
And today, we are going to be talking about body dysmorphia. So if you are at all uncomfortable with hyper-analyzing the body and how we feel about it, this is not the episode for you. But if that is your jazz, buckle up, because this is going to be a much-anticipated episode.
If you can relate, definitely keep listening.
Then this is for you.
Yes, this is the support club. So I know so many people who deal with body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
Because it's so common. It's so common. So what is body dysmorphia? And it's kind of like when we hyper focus on maybe something that we think is a flaw or like a defect in ourselves that like no one else sees. Yeah. No one else notices. But we hyper focus on it. And as a weight loss trainer, as a trainer in general, many clients deal with this. And I've had many conversations with them about it. I can relate. And it's something that just needs to continue to be talked about.
Yeah.
Because it's something that people can relate to. And it's something that I think people don't know how to talk to their friends about. Because when you have body dysmorphia about something, your friend might be like, oh, just get over it. Like, you're fine. But that's not a great solution for people. That's easier said than done.
For sure.
So we're going to talk about it a little bit. And I wanted to ask you a question.
Oh, hot seat already.
I know. For you guys who don't know, I planned the whole episode and Julia just comes along for the ride with whatever.
I just show up. I'm just happy to be here.
So I want to know is how was maybe body dysmorphia prior to your fitness journey starting versus now?
I think prior to my fitness journey, I experienced body dysmorphia, but I processed it in a very different way.
Okay.
So I grew up in the era of the original Mean Girls movie where there was that scene where the three Mean Girls all stood in front of the mirror and they were like, oh, I hate, this thing that's not really wrong with them, or I hate this thing that's not really wrong with them. And then they all turn to the new girl and they're like expecting her to say what's wrong with her. And she's kind of like, oh, like, I'm so ugly. And they just kind of go, oh, okay, like shrug, So before my fitness journey, when I would be hypercritical of my physical appearance or see things that other people weren't noticing, I kind of chalked it up to hypercritical, overly self-absorbed, like classic diet culture girl talk was kind of how I perceived body dysmorphia discourse in my head. Whereas once I started my fitness journey, I perceived myself to be more qualified in making those judgments.
Okay.
If that makes any sense. So,
like you're more in tune with your body, so therefore...
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, like I knew more about the different muscle groups and like how they grow differently and at different paces, and I knew like what should be where. So I was able to be more dismissive of those intrusive feelings and thoughts before my fitness journey, because I was able to say, oh, this is just socialization and culture, whereas post-fitness journey, I feel... probably inadequately, but I feel more qualified to make those judgments about myself, whether or not that's actually true.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's funny because you say that because you're like, well, I know what muscles grow more and less. And it's funny because then you're like, well, if your shoulders don't feel as big as they should be, then you can be like, but that's because it's harder to grow them. Instead of being like, oh, I'm screwing up in my shoulders. It's like, but it's harder to grow. Like, and also too, genetically, some people are harder to grow than others. Like, I have really long legs and you have really short legs.
Yeah.
Your legs grow tremendously well.
They do.
Your hamstrings. Let me tell you guys, she sends me photos of her hamstrings all the time. And I'm sitting over here, grinding out hamstring workouts 4 days a week just to get some smidgen of a hamstring. And you're like, wow, look at my hamstrings. And I'm like, Yep. I see that. And it's not that like I'm neglecting my hamstrings.
It's true.
Genetically, I have extremely long femurs, so my muscle is very dispersed. You can't see it. You have shorter legs, and therefore your hamstrings are so prominent and so there.
This is true.
And I envy that. So hard.
We take what we can get in this household.
I know.
You know.
But my shoulders develop
Yeah, they do.
Much better than, I think, most girls.
This is true.
So, you know, we have our give and our takes.
Exactly.
But what you said about, you know, weight loss and where you started versus where you are now is, I have a lot of clients who they're, maybe even before weight loss, we're never critical of our bodies. But I think once we start molding our bodies and really, like, I think it's easy to dismiss flaws when you're not putting effort into your body.
100%.
Because you're like, well, of course maybe I have this flaw. Like, I'm not working out. I'm not eating healthy. And if you're self-reflective and can say that to yourself, but I think it's different when you're putting work in at the gym. You're tracking your food. You're maybe not drinking. You're hydrating well. Then you're like, but why is this not going away? Why is this not growing? Like, why am I not skinnier than I think I should be? And it's very easy to be so critical of yourself because you're like, but I'm putting in effort. But I think we forget that where our starting point was to now, because you're like, even along like the start of the journey, maybe like 3 months in, your body had changed. And if you look back then, you're like, oh, those things that I think I see right now, like when in comparison to the 2 photos, it's like, never mind. Like, when we have like a reality check, and I feel like as a coach, that's part of my position to be like, okay, maybe you feel like, you know, you need to be skinnier, whatever. And I'm like, well, we just started this weight loss journey, like, let's say 9 months ago even. I'm like, people work 3 or 4 years.
Man.
And they're still never fully satisfied. And I think some people take that negatively of like, they're never fully satisfied with their physique. I think it's such a positive thing because our bodies are such dynamic characters. Like, if you're into like reading and you know like a static character versus like a dynamic, it's beautiful that our bodies are dynamic because as we age and as maybe we transition into different levels of fitness or maybe we change our like food preferences. But pescatarian, I was pescatarian for 8 years. That was a very large food change for me. And then now I'm back to not being pescatarian. And our bodies are so dynamic that it's kind of nice that they're changing in different ways. And like we get to see that they're doing different things. And like maybe there's, you know, women get pregnant and then, you know, they have to go back into a new body essentially. And I think that's where it's nice that maybe we're not fully satisfied because it leaves us room to get creative and have fun with like how we're working with our body, which we talked on the last episode about how you can shape your own body. And that's still kind of with this is it's kind of nice that like we're never fully satisfied because it's not necessarily a negative thing. It's like, that's great. It motivates us. It pushes us because in working on your physique, your overall health truly benefits. And if we hit our favorite physique and we're just like chilling on the couch all day eating like crap again, first of all, your body's not going to respond well to that. I think it's great that we have like a driver to always become better. And I think sometimes we think with like education and like our jobs that like we're never satisfied with that stuff. And that's okay. Because we're taught to just keep grinding. But I think with our body, it's okay too to, you know, keep working on it and keep getting it healthier because we age and our bodies start to be hindered by that. And if you just keep working on it and keep seeing the beautiful changes that you're making, you can always keep going in that. And that's where, like, even for me, I'm like, I'm not done yet. Not done yet. But I was gonna bring up, which we've talked about before, is high school sports.
Oh! If you're listening, this is our hydration challenge. You are to take a glug of water anytime we mention high school sports. Or Taylor Swift. Those are your 2 hydration cues.
Oh, man. Because we both did sports.
That we did.
And it's so funny, too, in high school, like, some of the sports that we get put into were like, this affects us really long term. And for me, I was a gymnast.
That is no joke.
I was a gymnast and then I was a diver.
Yeah.
Both of which you are in tiny leotards. And I know I dealt with body dysmorphia a lot.
Really?
In those sports because those sports are all based on judges' scores. So if my legs weren't straight, deduction. If my toes weren't pointed, deduction. If your hair started falling out, it could be a deduction. If your bra strap shows, if you've ever seen Stick It, I don't know if you've seen the movie Stick It.
What?
If your bra strap pops out of your leotard, it's a deduction. If your underwear shows on your leotard, it's a deduction. Like, so there's so much judgment in the sports that I grew up doing. Like, it wasn't like, you shoot a basket, that's a point.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, one of her feet were flexed. Therefore, deduction.
Gosh.
And I think that's affected me a lot.
Yeah.
Because I grew up always having, like, an external judgment. Mm-hmm. And I think that caused me to internally judge because, like, that's all the sports are. And not saying gymnastics or diving is bad, but I think it's good as an adult to reflect on the sports that influence how you see your body now.
Ooh, very true.
Because my idea of success as an athlete was based on what my body was doing. And I think now as an adult, I'm like, I still have so much times where I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, I wish this and I wish that and I wish that. And I think part of that is a reflection of I've always used my body as, like, my competition for things. Like, yeah. And even now, I'm in a physique
I was just waiting for you to, like, land on that. I was like, okay, it's coming. The wheels are turning.
I'm in a physique-based sport.
Yeah.
But I've always kind of been. Like, when I dove, if my legs were not straight or if my toes were not pointed, it's deducted. And so I think high school sports and college, because I did in college, but, like, really affected me now as an adult.
Man.
And I think other people can relate to it. I think a lot of people were gymnasts growing up. Like, it was like gymnastics or soccer.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have done gymnastics. And now as adults, you know, I think sometimes we subconsciously, because that in our developmental stages, that's where we're at. So it's very important that we start to revert our mindset a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And be like, okay, we're not competing. We're not, like, no one's standing on the outside, like, judging our body.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even with, like, my weight loss clients is they're so harsh on themselves that then as their coach, I think is it helpful having a coach to, like, reel you back in with the body dysmorphia? Because my coach does not do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? My coach is
Does
definitely
he just
not
lead you to
definitely
it?
not
Like...
Mr. Words of Affirmation.
No.
So as a female,
mm-hmm.
with a female coach, what has helped you with any body dysmorphia through having someone who literally pays attention to your body every single week?
It's been really helpful to provide that baseline because I'm kind of the opposite. Bringing it back to high school sports is, yes, form mattered for, like, throwing a discus or throwing a shot, but the form mattered not because you were being judged on it, but because it would affect your output.
Right.
So I tend to be super intrinsic with my body dysmorphia where I can work myself up into a spiral and get really in my head with it. So it's actually helpful for me to have that external force and, like, voice of reason and objectivity to come in and say, hey, like, there was one time I came to your house and you said, oh my God, you're disappearing in front of me. Like, where have you gone? And I said, like, what? Wait, why? And then it's true. Like, I looked at I take copious amounts of photographs in my life. And I looked back at the photos from when I had last seen you. And sure enough, like, I looked different. And I just hadn't noticed because I'd been so in my head about how I was performing. And I found it really helpful. But I think that conditioning or lack of that external conditioning really affected how well I receive external validation or comments.
Okay, and kind of with that, how do the photos help you without, like, an external input, like with check-in photos when you can make comparisons? Like, how does that help you with your body dysmorphia? Because I encourage people all the time to take photos because it's good to look back and be like, oh, I did that, you know? So how has that, like, kind of helped you?
I think it's really helpful for me because your progress photos are a special little secret that you keep between you and your trainer, and you can choose to share that secret when you're feeling fun and confident about it. So that's just, like, a fun, happy bonus. Like, if you're on the fence about progress photos,
I love when you share yours.
They're very fun. It's very fun. But the reason they're fun is because I can be all caught up in the minutia of how I look right now, and then I can just go back and look at a checkpoint 6 months ago. What, now 8 months ago? Yeah, I can look at 8 months ago and take, for example, we talk on the pod a lot, we're trying to grow the glutes. And I will look at my progress pictures, like, from the week before this, and this week when I take my progress picture, I'm going to look at my glutes, and I'm going to say, there is so much work to be, I'm going to get really into the nitty gritty, and to keep myself in check, I am going to go back and look at the progress picture I took on the first day of my journey and say, this is exciting. This is observable progress. This is, if nothing else, a tangible testament to my commitment to taking better care of myself. And that really helps ground those, because and it's not necessarily a bad thought. Like, I think it's important with body dysmorphia is sometimes it's harder to catch, because at least for me, sometimes it like presents itself in a gain frame, like, positive light. Like, it'll say, like, oh, like, this isn't looking good, but don't worry, you can do exercises X, Y, and Z to fix it. Whereas if I'm really like, whoa, like, what is accurate, what is a objective view of reality right now, I can say, like, okay, like, I know I'm really focused on and really excited about improving this part of my body, but it's important to pause and take note of how far we've come. So I would say those are kind of two things with progress pictures in particular.
Yeah, you were saying, like, there's so much work that needs, like, when we talk nakedly about stuff, we're like, there's so much work that needs to be done. And I'm like, but the photos show so much work that has been done. And I think that's kind of reframing that in your mind of, like, if you're losing weight, or if your focus is muscle mass gain, if your focus is strength, and because even with strength, it's like, you know, if you're like, oh, like, this, like, I have so much farther to go, like, I'm only here, and it's like, yeah, but, like, look at what's happened, and I think that's really important to fixate more on that, of where you've come and how in the next 6 months, if you look at the past 6 months and see the work that you've done, and you're like, dang, if I commit for another 6 months, can we imagine where we'll be? And that's a good mindset to be. And also, what you were saying is, so I've been telling Julia, I've been obsessed with this book that I'm reading.
Yes.
And it's called We Should All Be Millionaires, and it's by Rachel something. I don't know her last name.
Rachel Smarty Pants.
Yeah, but one thing that I really like that she said that I think is something good that can help cope with the body dysmorphia is, let's say you're like, I want to lose weight, but I don't know how. Or I want to lose weight, but it's not going quick enough. Or I want to lose weight, but I can only do 30 minutes on the treadmill.
Yeah.
It's better to change the word but into and. So if it's like, I want to lose weight and I don't have a coach, that's fixable. That's an open door. Instead of I want to lose weight, but I don't have a coach. That closes the door. So when we start to open the door to the solutions to maybe the stuff that we're struggling with, which is, I was like, that's genius.
That is wild.
Yeah, because it's like, I'm not happy with where my glutes are, and I have exercises to keep working on that.
Yeah. Or
I am struggling with body dysmorphia, and I don't have a coach to help me with that. That's like, okay, I have body dysmorphia, and I need help with that, and I can get a coach. Like, it changes the self-talk with yourself to open doors for you. And when it comes to struggling with the stuff that we're saying to ourselves and over-analyzing about ourselves and being hypercritical, it's like we need to change the conversation with ourselves. And if you're like, I need to lose more weight, even if you've already lost 60-some pounds, you're like, I still need to lose more. And you're like, well, I'm looking fat today or whatever. Like, we say that to ourselves, and that's an honest conversation we have with ourselves, that we're feeling that way, but it's not always our reality, right? And so that talk of like, I need to lose weight, but I don't think I can. And it's like, well, let's change that. Like, I want to lose weight, and I've already done so much of that, and we have so much further that we can go. Like, we're so capable in talking to ourselves in a way that's like removes the word but from the conversation, and just like, and I have this, and I can do this, and maybe I don't have this right now. I can make a change. Like, it's leaving the conversation like continually open for yourself, which I really loved that in her phrasing. And it's like totally a whole different scenario with the book, but it's true that like self-talk can really change how we feel. And so even today I was like working out, and I was like, first of all, I just got back from Ghana. I went to Africa for a week.
Just a quick trip.
For a medical mission trip. And that was the longest time I haven't worked out in probably 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever taken that amount of time off. And coming back, I was like working out, and I'm feeling like tired, a little bit, more sluggish than usual. I'm severely jet lagged. And even today that I was like, I just look watery, and I just feel a little bloated, and I'm a little swollen. I get really swollen when I fly. And I was like, ugh, like I have so much work to do right now on like on my physique from that 10 days off. And then I was like, you know what? I need to not be hard on myself.
Yeah.
Went to Ghana. Amazing experience. Helped a lot of people. And you know what? I came back and I'm the same weight as when I left.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? The gym might feel really hard right now.
Yeah.
It felt really hard the past 2 days, by the way.
Aww.
The gym was really hard for me. And like, this was the first time where I've worn a t-shirt to work out in so long. Because I was just not feeling good. I was like, oh, I feel bloated. I can't
even imagine that.
Yeah. I wore a t-shirt and I was like, I was having such bad body dysmorphia yesterday. Coming back from the trip, not having worked out. I had no control of the food I ate because we were, being hosted.
Yeah.
And I had to really, like, mentally try to battle that. And yesterday was really hard for me to mentally battle through that. In, like, judging myself for being like, should you have gone on the trip? Like, should you have packed more food for you to eat so you didn't have to eat the food that you ate there? And I was being really, really, really hard on myself. And then I was talking to my clients and they were like, how was Africa? Like, how did you feel? And that was the moment where I was like, oh my gosh, like, I used my body because I'm healthy to travel all the way on the other side of the world to help people. And, like, I need to be gentler on how I'm talking to myself. Mm-hmm. And so today, like, was much better.
Good.
But it does matter, that self-talk, and, like, what your body's doing for you and how you're taking care of it. And yes, there might be things you still want to change, or maybe you're just being hard on yourself, but it's like, no one else is seeing that. Like, no one else came up. If I asked anyone, no one would be like, oh yeah, you look bloated and watery today. Like, we're so hyper-focused on, like, ourselves that we're like, no one notices.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're kind of gonna go into a little bit, is, like, it's really hard for us to realize that no one else notices what we're so focused on. Mm-hmm. Like, you've expressed to me, you're like, but what about this? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what are you even talking about? And as a coach, I feel like I'm pretty good at diffusing some body dysmorphia, but at the end of the day, it's how we talk to ourselves.
That's true. Well, and it goes back to what we've been saying about counting macros and actually showing up to the gym, is that we can picture you on our shoulders saying those nice things to us as much as we want, but that's not going to actually replace the actions that we're going to need to do.
Yeah. And I think, too, sometimes body dysmorphia can just, like I said, hit more when we feel like maybe we've set those goals to the side, because we immediately think we're seeing a digression in our progress if maybe we have a bad week.
Yeah. And
then we start to, which I see with a lot of clients initially, is talking, and you've talked about this, is talking negatively about their bodies initially. Mm-hmm. And when maybe a week is really hard, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's through nutrition, they start to revert back to those negative self-talk thoughts, which just starts to deteriorate the process a little bit, because then you start getting wrapped up, and that's how people can really fall off, is not giving themselves enough grace. Because you do have to give your body grace, because our bodies, again, are always changing. They might need something different. They might need you to rest for a few days. Like, maybe that's what your body needs. And I think when we just so hyper focus on everything we want to change, like, your body is not going to change overly quickly. Your body, takes time to adjust. And, again, we've said this before, if getting super in shape was easy, everyone would do it. It's not easy. It's really hard, and we have to give ourselves grace in that. And I think practicing grace, and that's where people do really well with having, like, a gratitude journal and writing those thoughts out, because when we talk to ourselves, I think it's easy to, like, almost forgive ourselves for having those bad thoughts and, like, letting that influence us. We're just like, no one else knows I'm having these thoughts. But, like, if you write it out, I think that's a good way of processing, and then being able to reflect on how you're feeling, so that maybe you're like, I just feel like, I'm not doing enough for my body, and I feel like I'm not losing weight quick enough, and you're talking negatively to yourself. But then, looking back at those, like, journal, like, writing, like, I'm thankful that at least my body, I could go to the gym and walk on the treadmill today. Mm-hmm. And, like, showing gratitude towards your body can help stop judging your body so much. Yeah. And then focus on, like, why you're actually making these lifestyle changes, why you're sacrificing maybe eating chocolate every single night, you know?
Yeah.
I think the self-talk needs to be also written down when you're having like those moments. And that's a lot of self-awareness.
Well, and the self-talk can also be a cue or a trigger. Like, I think it's important to not dismiss negative self-talk entirely. Like, as much as I hate the phrase, like, in every joke there's a bit of reality, you know, I hate that because that cannot be unilaterally applied. But, like, when it comes to our negative self-assessments about our body, whether or not that's objectively true is to be determined, but to us it feels true. And so some part of that negative assessment is coming from our perception of how we're handling things. And so what I do in my journaling practice is based off of, so random, how we would give constructive feedback when I was in a sorority.
Okay.
So random. So let me explain.
Please elaborate.
It's very practical. It's the compliment sandwich method of delivering feedback. So you start with a compliment, start with the good things, lay the groundwork, really pump the ego, then you tear them down, and then you build them back up again a little bit. But then in your compliment on the end, you kind of reference the negatives or the constructives that you mentioned, and then the end compliment kind of addresses the whole picture of the good, the bad, and then how both of those can be leveraged for the greater good. So when I do that journaling practice, I start with, I am so proud of myself for going to the gym today. And as painstaking as it is, you start with that positive because you're like, oh, like I ate most of my protein. You know, you just get it out, and then you can just like shred on yourself. Like sometimes I'll even right before I go in, I'll say like, I fully acknowledge that these thoughts are not productive, but I just need to get them out of my head. Like it needs to be said. So I'll just put it all down, and then I'll pause. I'll read the positives, I'll read the constructive feedback, and then I'll write in that final compliment part of the compliment sandwich how I'm going to use my strengths to address like the threats and the weaknesses to become an opportunity. And that's on SWOT analyses as a college major. But that's exactly how I address the journaling practice.
Okay. You know, they actually teach us that in coaching.
Really?
Yeah. When I was like a gymnastics coach, they're like, say, hey, that's great. I'm glad you went for that. Next time, let's try to straighten your legs. But the rebound was really great. Well, but I do think it's a good tactic for when we talk to ourselves, because I think it's good to acknowledge what we're doing really, really well. I think it's good to also acknowledge where we have room to grow, but then like, you know, give ourselves that positive, because I think that's sometimes our driving motivator. Yeah. It's like, okay, I slept 8 hours. Great. I got rested. You know, I didn't do very well on my food, but I did go to the gym. So I'm going to keep doing that, and then I'll work on that thing. I think it does really formulate where you can still be self-motivated through what maybe you need to work on, and motivated through the things that you're doing really well. I get motivated through things I'm doing really well. Yeah. I don't necessarily get as motivated for like the negatives. Like I can work on those, but like I go to the gym because I like going to the gym, and like I think I like texting Enrique and being like, hit all my workouts, like the things I'm doing well, and that motivates me. Yeah. So I do like that though. I think that's great, because no one has mastered the body dysmorphia at all, and so I think it's great that there are some tactics that have worked for us that maybe people can try, because I mean, no one on social media knows the solution to body dysmorphia. They're like, oh, just get rid of it.
Just go for a walk, darn it. If you're anxious.
Like, are you struggling with your image? Just love yourself.
Are you struggling with your image? Try not.
Yeah. Like that's such a solution people come up with. Yeah. Like, I do feel like that. Like, no one actually gives, like, good, structured advice. But I do think it's good to know that you're not alone in it. That people of all body types are going to struggle with body dysmorphia. I think that is a big misconception, because I think people might even look at you and be like, oh, she lost so much weight, she must feel amazing, like she's doing such a good job, and not even think about, you know, sometimes we wake up in the morning and we're like you have those little moments. So and that's where too, like online, we've talked about this before about commenting on people's like body and stuff. Like people are like, well, she's so confident, it probably doesn't bother her. Mm-hmm. But like the best of the best get bothered by that, because to some extent it heightens the things they're already thinking about. Mm-hmm. Which is also why you should be nice online. Little plug there.
Say it again.
Yeah. Be nice to the people.
Yes.
Because everyone struggles with their own body image. Everyone struggles with, looking at themselves in the mirror and having those moments where, like, maybe they feel like they're not enough, or maybe they feel like they haven't done enough, or, like, they feel, like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like, inadequate, unaccomplished, stuck.
Yeah, like, stuck. Like, they're never gonna get there, mm-hmm. Like, where they feel like, this is what I'm stuck at, like, and I've had people who are my clients who have felt that, where they're like, they feel stuck, like, they're like, I think I'm gonna be this weight forever, or I think I'm gonna look this way forever, and they're not happy with it, but they're like, it just has to be it, like, this is how I feel, and like that, they sit in that, and then, maybe their body changes, and they're like, not completely happy, they're like, well, what if this is my end, like, the body dysmorphia continues no matter what size, shape, weight, muscle mass, body fat percentage, whatever you are, there's always going to be, as they say, you're your own worst critic.
This is true.
And now, as other people, though, it's like, we can continue to feed into our friends and our family who maybe, like, you don't know who's struggling with body dysmorphia. Like, you truly don't. And, like, that's why it's very good to be mindful of all of your comments and everything. But, like, that's where also I think it's important that if you're someone that struggles with body dysmorphia, like, it's always good to give people encouragement even when maybe you don't think they need it. Like, it doesn't have to be something big.
Yeah.
And it could be like they're wearing a cute top and like, oh my gosh, you look really good in that top. Mm-hmm. Because maybe before they left, they possibly thought, should I be wearing like a crop top? Like, like, you never know what people are thinking. And I think as support systems, as people who also deal with that, and that's kind of, I think, where this podcast is kind of going, is like, no one's alone in feeling that. Like, whether you are tip-top shape, whether you are maybe starting your fitness journey, maybe whether you haven't and you're just contemplating starting it, you're in that pre-contemplation stage.
Yeah.
Wherever you're at with that, you're not alone in picking apart your body in the morning or going to bed or whatever that looks like. And as people who also deal with that, it is so nice to pour into people and surround yourself with people who are going to constantly do that for you, so that maybe when you look in the mirror and you put that top on again, you're like, oh yeah, she said I looked really good in this top.
Yes.
I think that helps me. I don't know about you. I think that helps me when I'm having some, like, issues talking positively to myself. It's like, if someone just comes up to me like, hey, you look really good today, or like whatever, the tiniest thing helps me. So I don't know how that is for you. But yeah, that's just my thought on that.
Yeah. Dang, no, like a pay it forward system.
Yeah. Like you have at the drive-thru.
Yes, exactly. Well, and there's a really interesting poem that resurfaces on, like, a couple of my friends' Instagram stories every, like, 4 years or so. It's kind of like a nature's healing cycle. And it comes up and it's, and I see all viewpoints on this poem. It's interesting. So basically the gist of the poem is, I'm sorry to everyone I've called, like, beautiful or handsome. Like, I'm sorry I didn't notice how witty you were. Or I'm sorry I didn't notice the confidence in the way you walked. Or I'm sorry I didn't notice this careful and thoughtful gesture you made for someone else. And I thought that was really interesting because I, having now entered the fitness sphere...
I love that.
Yes, fitness sphere, the fitness cinematic universe, if you will. I love it. Now that I'm in it, I'm at a point where, I mean, we talked about this on another episode, like, people in fitness will walk up and in the first, like, 2 minutes of their exchange start talking about the muscles that have grown bigger on the other person. Mm-hmm. And it was fascinating for me because I came from the realm of, like, don't perceive me, don't look at me, don't acknowledge that. Like, any conversation about that's going to make me feel uncomfortable. Whereas as I've spent more time in the gym, growing muscular structure, doing cardio to burn fat. It's been really interesting to have those conversations and to see how people in this community do that in a productive and uplifting way that, in my opinion, doesn't incur the same body dysmorphia that, like, scrolling through a voiceless Instagram feed does.
Yeah, no, I do. I like what you said, because I think in the gym, we do say those things to each other. We're like, dang, your shoulders look really good. And in the gym environment, like, when people say stuff like that, people become more receptive and more open to accepting compliments, where I think in other situations, we tend to deflect compliments. And you're right, because in the gym atmosphere, like, people are so much more receptive when people compliment them.
Oh, yeah.
Because they know that if that muscle group grew, they are solely responsible for it. Like, even if they have a trainer, their trainer didn't do the 100 lateral raises for them.
Yes.
Which is kind of a cool concept, though, of, like, taking ownership and, like, accepting those compliments and, like, really letting those sink in to help our own viewpoint on ourselves.
Yeah.
Where if maybe someone compliments you on something that, like, when people, I'm a very blue-eyed person, so people are always like, oh, your eyes are so pretty, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, that does nothing for me. I'm like, that's genetics. That's from my parents.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, cool. I didn't work for those. I was born with them. But when people are like, wow, your shoulders look really good, I'm like, thank you. Like, that makes my day.
Yeah.
And then I go home and I'm like, oh, they're right. You know? So
it's true.
The fitness sphere is such a different space for compliments, which is why, they say this a lot. It costs you nothing to uplift someone. It really doesn't. And you never know who needs those words of affirmation for the day. And you can give yourself those words of affirmation. Like, think how you talk to other people and give yourself that same reflection. And even like with your sandwich, like, that you're talking, like, the whatever you call it.
I got hungry now thinking about my compliment sandwich.
Is looking in the mirror, you can say, wow, I've done a really good job on my shoulders. You know, I still have a little bit of ways to go with, like, losing weight, but, like, I feel good.
Yeah.
So then maybe you're addressing some things that you're still self-conscious about, and this keeps going on, that you're still self-conscious about, but then you're also acknowledging the progress you've done. And I think that can help. That's helped me when I've been in a mode of, like, everyone who knows me knows I am all dysmorphia about my legs.
Yeah.
Okay? Which, now given, they are not evolving as quickly as my shoulders.
But that's because your shoulders are, like, growing at a pace unmatched by a mortal man. Like, you can't blame the shoulders for that.
Right.
It's not their fault.
But that's where sometimes I'm like, you know what? I look in the mirror, I'm like, okay, my shoulders look great. Okay, my hamstrings aren't where I want them to be. But, like, my quads, they're coming in.
Yes.
You know, so that's where that self-talk of, almost as, like, your own personal coach to yourself is, like, beautiful to acknowledge the good things. Like, don't stand in the mirror and pick yourself apart. Like, at least look in the mirror and say, okay, I showed up for myself and these things have changed. Now, yes, do I want to continue working on this? Even if it's some minor thing.
Yeah.
Then you just sandwich it a little bit more with, like, but I feel good today. I gave myself some sleep. I ate healthy. I drank my water.
Yeah.
So you can count your wins while working on the things in progress, the things that are loading.
Yes.
I think that maybe that'll work for some people for, you know, when we start to talk daily to yourself. At least, you know, with what you said is sandwich it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, teach yourself to acknowledge the things that you've done for your body, that you've worked on, that you've made so much progress on. Because, like, it's just so easy to just spiral.
Yeah.
When you start with something negative, it's so easy. So at least if you're going to talk to yourself, whatever that looks like, start with something positive.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes I tell people, I'm like, if you're always looking negatively on your day, start with something positive. Start with something that makes you happy. Mm-hmm. And the book I was reading also said that. Great book. But that's what it was also saying. It was like, start the morning with something that makes you feel empowered.
Yeah.
And if that's going to the gym, great. If that's sitting with a cup of tea and writing in a journal, great. Whatever makes you feel in control and positive about life, yourself, your body, mm-hmm. your mentality, like your mental health, whatever that looks like, start your day with that. Like, get the ball rolling with that. And I think that applies even when we look in the mirror, when we're at a store trying on clothes, and instead of immediately picking yourself apart, be like, okay, this color looks good on me. Maybe I don't like the cut, but like,
there you go.
But the size is right. So, keep going. I love that. I think that's great. I think I'll try that. Yeah. I think I'll do that.
Well, I think it's interesting to point out, too, because I know we're in the midst of a body neutrality movement, which I think is a natural opposition to body dysmorphia. And I don't necessarily believe, for me, body neutrality is the solution. But I think when we look in the mirror and do kind of, I'm doing air quotes right now, that objective assessment that includes those negative, air quotes again, qualities about yourself, I think that it can be really helpful. Two things. First is, if you're being entirely objective, there's also going to be positive things as well. Like, even when I first started my fitness journey, you even told me, like, your quads are pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, there's always, even if you're at the very beginning, you're on the precipice, if you are trying to convince yourself that by being negative, you are staying objective, in air quotes, I think it's important to, even if you have to, this is the qualitative researcher in me, even if every time you look at yourself, you take a little tally of like how many thoughts were positive, how many thoughts were negative, like just be curious about it, be a little scientist about it, unpack it, because I think it's really important to acknowledge that even if you're in a place where there's a lot of things you want to work on, there are things that you're already doing really well, and mm-hmm. you can use that momentum to keep pushing you. And then the other thing with the like body neutrality is... Can
you explain body neutrality real
quick? Oh my gosh, yeah.
Sorry, I don't think I've actually heard of that.
Really? Okay, yeah. So body neutrality is the concept that is, so to speak, the next evolution of body positivity. So if we define body dysmorphia as seeing things hyper-negatively, hyper-fixating on your body positivity is overemphasizing the positives of your body. That's body positivity. So that's where we were. Obviously, we're having this conversation about body dysmorphia, and in this conversation, we've said so many times about how many people feel this way. So body positivity didn't work for a lot of people. Yeah. And so out of that movement came body neutrality. And the concept of body neutrality is my body should not be used to make value assessments about me as a person. So the way my body looks, like, I'm not going to look in the mirror and say, I look super great today. Because if I look in the mirror and I say, my body looks super great today, that opens me up to a sticky situation tomorrow where I could look in the mirror and make that value assessment of my body and leave myself open to the opportunity that that value assessment could be negative. So if you're neutral, you're not going to fall into negative talk because mm-hmm. you're not overemphasizing the positive. But then if you're neutral, what's kind of arisen in the discourse after body neutrality is kind of, well, I have these body dysmorphia feelings, but if I am trying to be body neutral, how do I address those? Like, do I just dismiss me feeling dysmorphia because my body doesn't matter at all and I'm just a soul, but then are we abandoning our body and what our body needs? So it's fascinating. But yeah,
interesting.
The gist of it is we started with body dysmorphia. We didn't like that as a society. So then we moved to body positivity. That also wasn't working. And then we went to neutrality. And now as a society, we're kind of trying to figure out like the problems in that perspective as well. So this just all goes to say there is no solution. No one has figured out how to solve this problem, this condition of being human.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's complex.
You're all as lost as we are.
Truly. And we've spent so long thinking about this. Like, it's just, there's no solutions.
Yeah, there's no solutions. But we can offer potential tools.
Yeah,
building your
lessening
toolkit.
procedures, yeah.
Like, as a coach, I give people toolkits. Like, put tools in toolkit to help them deal with things that I've dealt with, that other people have dealt with.
Yeah.
Tools. Like, you have some of your mechanisms that you're like, this could help with this. And, you know, some days this might not work. Some days it might work really well for you. And, but the body neutrality thing, we'll continue talking about later. But
no, the toolkit's super important, and
yeah.
I think it's helpful too, like with the thought of amassing and building your toolkit. It's the same as like your fitness journey. You're never going to be done building your toolkit. You're never going to have every tool you're ever going to need. But I always equate it to, if I'm having a bad health and wellness day, I would rather go to my like bat cave level garage that has all of the possible tools that I've amassed so far than go to like my kitchen drawer that has the IKEA tool that comes with all the IKEA furniture. You know, I would rather have that wider variety of tools at my disposal. So if that's helpful, because I know it can be hard when you're, especially at the beginning for me, when I was first building my toolbox with like stuff that you would tell me, it would be really helpful. And then I'd go to like do those things. And sometimes I would exhaust everything you had told me to do. And I would still be feeling frustrated. And then I started building my own tools. And then I started looking to other people for tools. And so...
doing your research.
Yeah, like as daunting as all of these... I mean, side effects feels like a weird word. But like body dysmorphia is like a natural, I would say, consequence of focusing on your body so much through health and fitness. That there are ways that we can kind of tame that beast. So it doesn't need to feel scary or feel like a reason to not pursue a health and fitness journey. And rather just an exciting other challenge that we're equipping ourselves to take on.
No, I agree. And I think a lot of people, even outside of a fitness and health journey, really, really deal with that. Because I onboard clients and immediately they start hating on parts of their body that I'm like, I wasn't even focused on that, you know? But then it is cool months later where instead of being hyper-focused on that, they're hyper-focused on their progression and focusing on that. And I think a mindset shift can really, of hyper-focusing on just the good things. And like, I don't think that's the same thing as the body positivity. I think it's hyper-focusing on the things that you've done for yourself over, let's say, a course of 3 months. And like we said, the sandwich, like that's what I think for me, like I think that's like gonna be my best tool for when I'm feeling down on my body. And like, you just never know what other people are going through, what other tools other people, and talk about it with your friends, talk about it with your family, because I think just, I don't know how long it's been the time wise, but I think people don't always know that other people are going through it. And I think when you have those open conversations with other people and say, hey, like, you know, lately I've been not feeling great about my body, and like, have those conversations with your family, have those conversations with your friends, so they know where you're sitting at, so like they can offer their advice, you know, they know you best. And having those open conversations, and I think that's why we decided to choose this topic too for the podcast today, because no one is an expert on body dysmorphia and how to fix it and change it, but having the open dialogue about it and things we've experienced, things other people experience, things that maybe influenced our own body dysmorphia and tactics, I think it's just a kind of like a, what's that called? A call to action.
Yes.
Of talk to people about it. You don't know if the girl that looks ripped at the gym is dealing with that. You don't know if the really, really, really attractive person at the mall is dealing with that. You just don't know. And it's good to have an open dialogue with your friends and family about it. Because also too, you know, when people joke around about things or like maybe say something that might hurt your feelings, like if you don't have an open dialogue about it, they don't know where you're sitting at. So it's a vulnerable place to put yourself in, but it also might be really good because the people that care about you can help you know, you maneuver through that as well. Yeah,
vulnerability does not equal bad.
No, not at all. So, do you have any final thoughts on that?
Concluding thoughts, just that in my personal experience, the best way to combat body dysmorphia is being realistic, because in every realistic evaluation of a situation, there are pros and cons. but by staying objective and realistic about it, we can stay solution oriented and focus on what we can do, but also being grounded in reality and the success that we have used to get to this point. So just, I find that personally, thinking of it as using reality and what is true to combat body dysmorphia has been the most helpful for me. What about you?
I think for me, my body dysmorphia is so influenced just through me being mindful of how I talk to myself. Yep. And placing the value in my own words to myself as much as I would like a stranger.
Yes.
I think like placing that emphasis and like, you know, when I talk positively to myself, I'm like, that's just as valuable as if someone else said that to me.
Mm-hmm. And I would argue even more valuable, at least just from what I know of your and my experience. Like, yeah.
And that maybe sometimes I'm not gonna be totally content with where I'm at, and that maybe sometimes I might be a little hard on myself, but like follow that up with like how proud I am of myself of how far I've come, and whether that's I need to look at my progress photos. Yeah. Then, you know, that's the affirmation I need for myself, and like placing value in what I've done, placing value in my own words to myself, and using the constructive criticism as not as a negative towards myself, but a positive that I acknowledge it and I have control to work on those things. But like, I've also had other things that I want to change that now I look in the mirror and I'm super happy with. Yep. So placing value in all aspects of yourself, and that we have control and opportunity to continue moving forward, feeling good about ourselves, and just, you know, there's gonna be bad days and that's okay, but like keep enforcing those positive thoughts, keep complimenting yourself, and talk about it. Yeah. Don't hold it all in, because that's how things bottle up and spiral out. And I know, like, sometimes you'll reach out to me when you're having those thoughts, and like that's when we can kind of
recalibrate.
Yeah. So anyway,
all that being said, we will be bringing you some body dysmorphia content, hopefully this week, on the Instagram account, which you can follow us at gggp_podcast on Instagram. And you can also reach out to us at girlsgainsandgrowingpains@gmail.com. So we check our Instagram more frequently, so if you have a burning question, hit us up there.
Yeah. That has been
another episode of Girls, Gains, and Growing Pains.